Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. It's number 63 today, and here we have Konstantin and
Becky.
All right, so it's a quiet one this week.
Yes, it's been a slightly quiet on the news front week.
Yeah, the aftermath of the big, well, a little small indie lens announcement, which is called 806.3.
That's right. Well, straight after the 800mm announcement, as we briefly mentioned on our Friday live stream, we actually won for the 6th year running the Amateur Photographer Good Service Platinum Award for Grays Westminster. So thank you very, very much for everyone who voted for us. That was the biggest news since the 800mm.
That's true. Yes, 6th time in a row.
So thank you very much for that. We are absolutely delighted to be at your service. If you ever need anything Nikon related from the shop, you know where we are.
We are here for you.
That's right. Moving into the main news for this week. So we've got some 800mm f6.3s coverage. The first up is the actual specifications comparison from Nikon Rumors between the 800mm 5.6 EFL DVR.
I know, I wanted to do that, but I was so lazy. I was like, no, let someone else to do that. And then we can read through that. Thank you very much, Nikon Rumors. We love you.
So they've gone through a whole comparison between the very large, very expensive F-mount version of the lens versus the specs on the new, smaller Z-mount lens. And it's quite interesting to see where the differences do and don't lie, actually.
Absolutely. Well, the first one up is the price, almost $10,000 difference. So one is $6,500, another one is $16,300. Then we got obviously the difference in the aperture is 5.6 on more expensive one versus 6.3. One is F-mount, one is Z-mount. Fantastic.
Surprise, surprise.
Absolutely. And then the elements. So the bigger one has 20 elements in 13 groups. The new version has 22 elements in 14 groups. So it's slightly more elaborate design. We have 9 blades in diaphragm, so both of them are there. One has 52mm drop-in filter. The smaller one has 46mm drop-in filter, so you may need to get a different model when you buy in one. And then, of course, the main one is the size and the weight. So the bigger lens is 160mm by 461mm versus 140mm by 385mm, and the weight is 4.6 kilograms versus 2.4 kilograms. That is quite a difference, almost double.
That is the most significant difference between the two, to be honest, at least on paper. The weight and the overall size of the 800 5.6 is quite prohibitive, I'd say, for a lot of photographers.
Well, definitely for handheld shooting, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tripod / monopod only sort of lens, whereas the 800mm, from the sort of real world first look impression reviews that we're seeing out and about there now, is very handholdable, very manageable, doesn't really need a tripod for most things. Surprisingly, the MTF charts are remarkably similar.
Yes, if you look at them, the line that falls off is very short, and that's as much as we know about that.
We've also got things like minimum focusing distance, so 5 meters on the new 6.3Z version, almost 6 meters on the 800mm 5.6 F-mount version.
Well, that's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, so the closer focusing distance is always a good thing, I would say. Although 800 is one of those lenses where you're not going to see your subjects coming right up close to the lens necessarily, but it's nice to have that extra little bit of range.
Absolutely. So it's all win-win for me. So apart from the size, the price, and the weight, the lens hood is also significantly cheaper. So we're looking at $150 for the new lens hood, which is called HB104, only costs $150. However, the old hood for 5.6 F-mount version, which is called HK38, is almost $1,000. It's $999. So that's significantly different. And also, if you look at the price of the lens hood for the new Z400mm, it's also cost $1,070. So significantly cheaper. I mean, if you look at the price difference, of course, the new hood is made of plastic polycarbonate, and the hood for 400 and F-mount 800mm is made out of carbon fiber. It's also made in Japan versus made in China. So I guess that is the price difference. I also feel that paying $1,000 for a lens hood is obscene. But that's me. And I also don't have money for either Z400mm or for F-mount 800mm lens.
So it doesn't really matter, does it?
Exactly. I'm not the target market for this. But it sounds to me that, yes, a lot of camera manufacturers looking at the equipment, if you're buying something expensive, or like if you buy an expensive car, so you're buying a Ferrari, you're not going to put, let's say, cheap tires on it.
No.
So you will pay extra for the accessories. And in terms of this, I think the comparison is similar, but of course the materials and being made in different countries, that's all matters. I don't think it's 10 times the difference.
No, also the material that your hood is made out of also doesn't really affect the image quality. So it's a bit of an odd one. It's not like a filter, you know, where obviously cheaper glass could potentially affect the image.
Absolutely. And then obviously if you look at the materials used as well, that's the lens hood's made out of carbon fiber, made to support a much heavier lens. And the idea is obviously it should hold the lens while it's standing on the floor with the lens hood attached. So obviously the new 800 6.3 is a lot lighter, so you don't need a carbon fiber construction for the lens hood. So it could be just a plastic polycarbonate. So, and obviously the more expensive hoods, they have a proper screw attachment mechanism where you tighten the lens hood around the lens, and the new lens hood on 800mm, it's basically a snap-on attachment similar to lenses like, let's say, 24-70, etc., etc.
Yeah, those, it says it's got a K in it as well. It's HK, you pay extra for the case.
Always.
You do. It's true. The HK hoods are always more expensive.
I know. My name is Konstantin, I know. It's a K tax.
Pricey.
A special K.
That's right. You got some special K in there. More 800mm news for you. We've got Steve Perry's photos and a new video on the 800mm f6.3. Now, the photos themselves are absolutely stunning and well worth having a look at there. Steve Perry is obviously a wildlife and bird photographer, and all the images on there are actually bird photography images, but well worth having a look at if you'd like to see the real world results.
Absolutely. And then he published the videos, the story behind those photographs, where he actually talks where he and how he took the images that he published. So have a look at this as well. We also have first impressions from DP Review as well. So they tried that as well. They liked it. Now we have Tom Mason. We also mentioned him. He published another video as well. I mean, I'm not a wildlife guy and not really a sports guy, but
Really?
But looking at those videos, you know, the production values are incredible. What I am very proud of YouTube community creating videos around this. I mean, you look at Tom Mason's production, you look at Morten Himmler, the production values are amazing. They're just incredible. So I think you guys looking at those videos, you're really having it good. So yeah, if I would be a wildlife photographer, I would really appreciate that.
You appreciate it and you're not a wildlife photographer.
Exactly. And it's, you know, before I would watch Planet Earth and David Attenborough, now I can watch Morten Himmler.
Yeah.
You know, recording this in somewhere in Scotland or Tom Mason in Antarctica. I think it's incredible. So I just want to say thank you for that, really.
Thank you for what you bring to the community.
Because sharing is caring.
Now for some Z9 coverage for you. So the Nikon Z9 review, speed, resolution, and 8K video power by Engadget on YouTube is well worth a watch.
Absolutely. The reason why we put Engadget in there, because it's a general folk website about technology, not photographers, just general people looking for iPhone review or some new gadget that came out. So it's worth having a website like Engadget and The Verge reviewing Nikon cameras, reviewing Nikon equipment, because more people read them. So not just our small community of photography enthusiasts, but also everyone who is enthusiastic about electronic gadgets.
That's right. Although speaking of our small community of photographer enthusiasts, Amateur Photographer actually awarded the Nikon Z9 not one but two awards. It won Top Professional Camera this year at the AP Awards, and it also won Best Overall Product. The other Nikon winning product was a little known lens by the name of the 40mm f2, which was the winner of the Best Budget Prime Lens category.
Yeah, 250 is a bargain for it.
Yeah. So very well done to Nikon for bagging those three awards. We were very happy to see them collecting them up on stage.
Absolutely. I think Z9 is a home run, regardless, you know, of its availability, because it's going to pick up every single photographic award that's going to be out this year.
So it should. So it bloody well should.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, we also have Matt Irvin.
Who liked my Australian accent.
He loved it. And I think you should do more Australian accent on the show. From now on, you should just speak with Australian accent.
I'd make people's ears bleed, I think, if I did that too much, you know. They'd be like, what are you doing?
You're going to ruin their hi-fi system.
Yeah, I will.
But he had a video, which he calls Z9 Moment, From Here to What Next? Opinion piece. So he talks about Z9 Moment being bigger than D3 Moment. Remember D3 Moment?
Yes.
The first Nikon full-frame digital camera that trumped everyone else. And Z9, he thinks, is even bigger than that. So have a look at that. That's a very interesting thing. We're going to talk about Matt Irvin because he's done a really cool thing, which I'll tell you later about. But just watch this video for now and then come back half an hour later and we will tell you.
Yeah, stay tuned for more on that. We will be talking more about the Z9 in the Nikon midterm reports shortly.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the things we don't understand.
Yeah, so Nikon's video production subsidiary, Nikon Creates, begins operations and enters the imaging content creation business using cutting-edge technology. So I'll read the press release for you. Here we go. As Nikon enters the image content creation business, it becomes the first Japanese license partner for Microsoft's mixed reality capture studios. So it will utilize Microsoft Corporation's cutting-edge production technology to produce high-quality 3D data output. Wow.
So let's explain what mixed reality is. It's basically a green screen, and you film a person or an object in a green screen, and then you put it inside the, let's say, other video. That's what we would call mixed reality.
Yeah.
So, or 3D scene, like we start to see a lot of content being created this way. So think about, let's say, Mandalorian. A lot of it was shot effectively on the green screen. Think Marvel movies. So, so obviously this is a much smaller production, but what they do is they basically partner with Microsoft, who've been doing this, who've done already research and development and all this. So, and they will allow content creators in Japan to come there to film all this stuff reasonably inexpensively, because this stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
To help young generations like us, we're still young, to create their content and fulfill their vision.
Yes.
Thank you, Becky. So, Bex, tell me, like, with the whole mixed reality thing, obviously Microsoft is pushing with their AR glasses, what they call it, and then you have Facebook or Meta, where, obviously pushing Oculus VR and looking into the space. And if you read an article about them changing the name Facebook to Meta and why is it important and what they're trying to create in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, all this is basically connected to that.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you, our listeners, say what you think about actually Facebook move doing this, what you think about the development of Google and Microsoft in that space, and obviously Nikon joining them. Answer no is not acceptable. I'll tell you why, because it's easy to brush off. We all, when first Apple iPhone was released, we didn't know we wanted it.
Yeah.
Releasing the products that people don't think they want and then becoming heavily mainstream is very important. So give me an answer no, but explain why.
Or don't, if you're fully supportive of it.
Exactly, because the change is difficult, and obviously we all on the fence because we don't know what that's going to mean to us.
Yeah.
I personally think that AR, while we put in the glass on, we start to see the elements and, this Minority Report style, that's really cool. And I would love to have this. How it's going to happen in the real world, you never know. But what are your thoughts? Do let us know. And hopefully we can discuss it next week.
We would be very interested to hear your answers.
More interesting news. Nikon announced a buyback of its own shares. In a notice regarding repurchase of shares of common stock and cancellation of treasury stock, the company decided to repurchase their own shares to enhance shareholders' returns. All right, so let's talk about this. When a company decides to buy their own shares, let's think logically.
Okay. No, I don't know. This is not an area in which I have any expertise whatsoever.
Okay, let me tell you. So generally, if company is positive on its own outlook, it decides to buy its own shares.
Right.
So it's not just buy its own shares, but it's a very strong and bullish sign for people. So why would the company buy their own shares if they're not sure that they're going to do well in the future?
I see.
Okay? So it's a good positive sign that us, young investors, are definitely going to look forward to. But it is an interesting development. Obviously, Nikon's been doing really well. So since being down in 2019, they've been basically up year to year. So, and the new financial report that's expected to come in any day now, we will be expecting, especially Imaging division, to be in profit. So that's really good. So this is interesting news. So what they're going to buy? They're going to buy their stocks and shares that's available on Japanese exchange. They're going to buy up to 36 million shares, or equivalent of 9.8% of outstanding shares. So that's a free float, effectively. So, or the total purchase of 30 billion yen. So either or, if you see what I mean. And they're going to do it between May 13th, 2022 and March 24th, 2023. I personally think that we may see run up in Nikon stock just based on this information.
Great. Is now the time to buy then?
Yes, it is not financial advice. But it is an interesting development. As I say, it's when company buys their own stock, that's just a good signal, positive signal to investors, that they are confident in their strategy in the future.
So let's talk about the midterms. This is the midterm management plan from Nikon, which was released just at the latter end of last week. The biggest takeaway from it is actually the future and what Nikon have kind of said they're forecasting for the next couple of years. We're in 2022 and they've forecasted up to 2025. What was the biggest thing that we kind of spotted in all this?
All right, well, let me tell you what the future holds. It holds 50 plus lenses for Z mounts and 2 plus lens attach rate. So that means every camera sold, people would have 2 lenses bought with it. They already done this with me, and I think with you.
Yeah.
We have like 3 or 4 plus attachment rates to that system.
Yeah.
But till this year, we had about 30, I think, lenses. So 30 or 33, something like this. So
yeah, I think the target for this year up to end of financial quarter was 30 lenses. So we've now accomplished that.
Yeah, so now we're going to have additional 17 plus lenses, which is a good thing. So more lenses to come. So let's talk about what kind of lenses shall we expect from Nikon?
Well, certainly on the roadmap at the moment, we've got 7 more lenses with the kind of, we don't know the specs of all of them, but we know that they're coming. At some point, you know, we've got the DX 24mm, the DX 12-24. We've got the elusive 85mm that we don't know what aperture it's going to be. We've got the 400mm, which we're assuming is going to be a PF lens, not the one that's just been announced, but another one, a smaller one. A 200-600, which we get asked about almost every week.
Yeah, 600 prime as well.
The 600 prime, and then also a slightly odd 26mm full frame prime, which I still don't entirely understand. But anyway, maybe it will be revealed at some point.
And did you mention 12-28?
I did.
Okay, fantastic.
So it's 7 lenses.
So we've got 7 lenses coming. So we've got, what, 33 now?
So this is so that will take us up to 40. So there's some interesting holes to be filled, I think, in the lineup. It's a great lineup.
Yeah.
And it's kind of rounding off the system now. I think that 200-600 is an important lens to bring out sooner rather than later. Truly, I do.
So that's equivalent of 200-500. So an inexpensive long-range lens.
Yeah, although it's colossal in its size, according to that. So I suppose someone out there has probably measured the size comparison. Do you think that's a 200-500 size? Because look at the size of the 800 and the 400. It looks big, but at the same time, if you look at the 100-400, the 200-500 is bigger than 80-400. So you're true.
I think it's reasonable. Okay, let's talk about the lenses that are not on the map. So the easy ones, I think I would say, is tilt and shift lenses. So it's highly likely that we will see 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's going to be 2. Let's say 1 wide angle and 1 potentially either something 45 or 85 mil. So
okay,
what else is missing?
I think that the 300 and 500 mil primes are very much missing. I'd love it if they also did a 200 mil prime, but I don't know if they will at this stage.
Okay. So we've got those. Then 70-300, I think that should happen.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's a yes. I think it's 100% yes.
We're also missing, which we haven't seen for quite some time, is a 135 prime.
That would be my choice.
Yeah, that sort of golden portrait focal length that we're really missing at the moment. Obviously, the last one we saw of a 135 prime was the defocus control lens, which was discontinued some years back and actually was originally designed for, I think it was the F100 or around that time, F5 time period. So possibly even F4. It was anyway. It's been long in production, and
it's an oldie but goodie.
Yeah, and it's sorely missed in the range now. So that's one that I'd like to see very much.
Okay, well I will add 200 micro lens as well to the list. So that one is being asked about. This again, it's not going to be a top seller, but it is definitely a thought after lens that people still buy secondhand.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else, to be honest.
All right, we've got 2 lenses to squeeze in. I think those 2 lenses will be 24 to something zooms, because obviously we clearly need to add some lenses in their range.
Great.
If they would release a 24 to something zoom, what would that be, Becky?
Oh my goodness. It would probably be, I don't know, 24 to 300 now. We've got 24 to 200, so it's unnecessary. We don't need any more 24 to something zooms. We really don't.
It's clear that Nikon doesn't think so.
I know, but we don't need any more 24.
My thinking is, personally, we've got 2875 2.8. So I think we may see another 7200 and 2.8 range, the Tamron edition. And we may have an additional wide-angle lens, the Tamron edition as well. So I think that's potentially will push the list of lenses to 50 plus.
I like that.
Yeah?
I think that's great. I mean, they should just ask us, and then they should just do whatever we ask them to do.
Absolutely. Here you have it, folks. Let's move on to the other things. Well, another couple of things that I've kind of pointed out from the report is obviously they now saying that imaging division is profitable. So all other businesses are not so much, but the imaging division, which creates cameras and lenses, is making money. So that's good news. And overall, they hoping to increase the profit from 500 billion yen to 700 billion yen. So that's good news. They talking about focusing on licensing businesses. So I don't know what that means. It could be a bunch of Uniqlo t-shirts with Nikon logos, It could be something else.
I wonder if the licensing business refers to their allowing other brands to make Nikon lenses, because obviously Sigma and Tamron at the moment are trying to obtain licenses from Nikon to produce Z-mount lenses. And based on a conversation, I don't know if I should say this, but anyway, based on a conversation that I had with the CEO of Sigma on Thursday.
She knows people.
Absolutely lovely gentleman to meet. He said they really are trying, and actually they need a bit of sort of encouragement from the Nikon side to get the license approval and agreement. So maybe that's what they're looking at.
I agree. Scrub the Uniqlo t-shirts with Nikon logo. I agree. I'd rather prefer this. This is actually an interesting thing. So if that's the case, then we will see Sigma lenses by 2025 and maybe a Tamron lenses as well with the Tamron logo, who knows. So, but we really need to have those two players. I mean, we've got Voigtlander now, we've got a bunch of Chinese manufacturers like TT Artisan and Viltrox and Yongyo all entering the market in this place. But having the Japanese manufacturers like Tamron and Sigma joining the Z-mount family, I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic option. And then that means that it will expand the Z lineup from 50 plus lenses to bajillion lenses.
Yeah, well, Sigma will have pretty much ready to go another 25 lenses.
Absolutely. What do you think about entry-level cameras? We see it from the report, they're saying we want to maintain higher margins. So they're still trying to improve their margins. There's an interesting point that Tom Hogan wrote about, saying don't expect any entry-level anytime soon from anyone, pretty much, because they all got to the point where they can't really do more than that. So if you look at something like the example he brings, that D3300, not even 3400, brand new, still available in the United States for $250.
Wow.
How can you beat this with the current world of logistical and semiconductor shortages?
Yeah.
How can you create a product that's going to compete with that? How can you create a product that is going to be $500, including the lens, entering the market? How do you do that?
I can see that, unfortunately, it's going to be cost prohibitive for them and any other manufacturer at this stage, because people aren't necessarily going to want to spend that level of money on a new camera if they're a first-time photographer, when they don't see a kind of clear and obvious difference between shooting with a proper camera, let's say, and their phone.
Yeah.
And the phone market is kind of slowly eroding away the entry-level market, sadly.
We are shrinking. The problem is they always say that, why do you need entry-level market? To bring new people. The problem is they already have those options available. What I think is important for any manufacturer is to actually, if you switch into mirrorless like Nikon, is to release an entry-level Z camera. So we need Z30. You can milk it for years. You can rename it every year by releasing the same tech effectively and just change the number. So, which they've been doing for years, in all the things. But keep it reasonably priced. And I think hopefully year after year they can make it cheaper and cheaper.
Yes.
I think that's important. But if you have that option after that, you don't really need to look at that and then try to justify, spending a lot more in R&D for cameras like Z9. Obviously, Z9 research and development doesn't pay by sales of Z9. A lot of entry-level stuff pays for the development of Z9.
Yeah.
For us to have such technology, Nikon needs to sell little things in volume.
That's right. Which actually brings me on to another point. They're binoculars, telescopes, field scopes, finders, etc. These are things that we don't really put much of a spotlight on, except for things that we don't know about. Occasionally we will discuss them there. But the optics, actually, the sport optics range or part of that business is a place where Nikon can make enough money in order to then put R&D into other things. And it's still part of the imaging business, but it's its very own, very specific niche product. So sometimes we just need to take a look at those as well. If you are considering a pair of binoculars, then do have a look at the lovely Nikon range that they have. They have incredible Monarch binoculars now, which I think the only competition is the Swarovski coated glass. So anyway, it's just interesting that those things provide money for the R&D for our nice bigger pro cameras, and very much worth bearing in mind as a consumer as well.
Absolutely. The rest of the report is very safe and steady. So in terms of this, we're going to see 8% year-on-year increase in overall profits. So it's all nice and steady, nothing exciting, but at the same time, if you're an investor, you may want to have nice and steady. So this report is mainly not for us users of the cameras. Well, Nikon is mentioning that they will work enthusiastically with the fans of Nikon Imaging products. This report is mainly designed for investors who actually put money into Nikon stock.
And that's it for the Nikon news. Let's move on to some brief third-party news.
The news is that Topaz Labs released a new version 6 of their software, which is called Gigapixel AI. This is the software that is used to enlarge small images and make them large available for printing. Remember when we talked about Bill Maynard? Well, he's using 120 frames per second with his Z9 while getting 11 megapixel images. Then he used the Gigapixel AI to enlarge that image.
Right.
And it gives really nice and printable results for the large print. So this software has got an update. Now it finally supports M1 silicon, which is good if you have a newish MacBook. I can tell you, all the M1 MacBook software works really well. We have this audio software that does the noise reduction, and the previous version versus new version is day and night. I mean, it saves me at least 15 minutes just on processing the audio. It's incredible. So I assume the Gigapixel is also going to be a lot faster.
Yes, because time is money and money is time.
All right. For your weekend read and watch section, we have a couple of interesting articles. The first one up is an article from Petapixel, and it's called Using the Nikon 8mm f8 fisheye Nikkor lenses as intended for science.
The article goes through a brief history of circular fisheye lenses, then how the lens was used scientifically and all that lovely nerdy stuff that we enjoy. Do check out the comments as well for some extra interesting info and trivia.
For example, the 8mm Nikon fisheye was used in Space Odyssey.
Yes, we talked about that in one of our live streams, didn't we?
Absolutely. And I thought it was 6mm,
but
and it wasn't.
It was the 8mm.
The next one up is actually a cool one from Matt Irvin. So what he did is he did a night tour of Melbourne with his Z9 and 50mm 1.2S. Whole video was shot in 30 minutes and edited down to 20 minutes.
Wow.
And they shot with this Magic Carpet, some sort of gimbal camera, which I couldn't find information on, so hopefully Matt shares some of it. But it looks really cool. Remember when we did a walk around town? So something like this, but much cooler in Melbourne at night. So do have a look at it. And obviously there's some lovely images with 51.2 lens as well.
Yeah. For your next weekend read and watch, this is a bit of fun. Thank you very much to Drazen for sending this over to me. We thoroughly enjoyed watching these. These are Nikon camera commercials from the 1980s and 1990s. So all film cameras, just tremendous marketing back in those days and just very, very enjoyable. So do go and have a look at those. We're going to include the link in the description box and the podcast notes for you.
Fantastic. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you very much for watching and or listening if you are. If you're on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this. If you're listening on a podcast platform, we would love it if you'd give us a follow, a review, a rating, all that lovely stuff.
And if you want more, you can join us on the Instagrams of the world.
That's right. The Grays of Westminster Instagram account is at Nikon@Grays. And then you can follow me at Rebecca_Danese.
And me at Konstantin Kochkin.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.